Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Theoretical Guitarists. Today we're going to take a look at the latest single from the band Gojira, Another World. This song has a pretty simple song structure, but there's a lot to unpack here, so let's just get right into it. If you haven't seen the music video yet, definitely go check it out. It's got a very unique and artistic animation style, and it gives us a little more insight into the music and lyrics. The song is based around a pretty popular science fiction concept. The video depicts cartoon versions of the band members building a rocket that can fold time and space to travel great distances across the universe. The point of all of this is so that they can escape the Earth and all of the terrible things that human beings are capable of. In the end, their quest is only partially successful as they manage to travel through time, only to end up back on the Earth after the extinction of humanity. The song itself is actually in D standard, so it's drop C, but the bottom string is raised up a whole step, D, G, C, F, A, D. Another World consists primarily of 3 distinct sections, along with a bridge, solo, and outro. And the entire song contains only about 3 riffs. Each of these sections and their respective riffs are tied together by similar musical motives. If you aren't familiar with this term, take a look back at our analysis of Composure by August Burns Red, where we take a look at this idea in a little more detail. The common threads that tie each of these sections together are a series of hammer-ons and pull-offs to the open strings, and every riff and section in the song contains a variation of this idea and this technique, and it really helps to give the song character and continuity throughout. The song opens with the main riff, which will eventually become the chorus. This riff outlines C minor and G minor chords, heavily utilizing those hammer-ons and pull-offs, pulling off to the open C and G strings. After playing through this section once, the song moves into the first verse section, shifts down to the D string, utilizing more hammer-ons and pull-offs. This section doesn't provide much harmonic structure the way the opening riff did, but it does add some variety, along with a brief tonal center shift to D. After this, the verse and the chorus both repeat before we get to the bridge section. Once you get these 2 riffs down, you've pretty much learned about half of the song. While these riffs themselves aren't too complicated, it can be a little tricky playing them in time. You may find that your left hand has a tendency to rush through the hammer-ons and pull-offs, so you really have to be conscious to slow down the left hand. Make sure that your hammer-ons are falling within the proper place in the beat, and that you're not pulling off too quickly to the open string. The bridge continues to build over C minor and G minor chords, the only difference here being instead of outlining the chords note by note, we're actually sounding the notes together. Over top of this, the main riff returns for one playthrough before shifting slightly from outlining C minor and G minor to outlining C5, G minor, and D minor chords. It's also at this point that the guitar solo begins. There's a lot going on in this section, and it's kind of difficult to hear what the main lead line is. There's a lot of reverb, a lot of tremolo picking, and even what sounds like a whammy pedal being used to shift octaves. Basically perfect music while we're flying in a rocket ship that can bend space and time. After the bridge and solo, we get one last repeat of the chorus before it ends kind of abruptly for the outro. This section of the music video depicts the point at which the interstellar travelers realize that they haven't actually traveled through space and time. They've managed just to come back to Earth at a point in the future where humanity has been long gone. The music mirrors this by maintaining that same chorus riff, only shifting it up an octave. We're not really in another world after all. Another feature about this song that I find really interesting and actually fits in perfectly with the lyrical content is the way the music plays with the themes of space and time. Both the bridge section and the outro just contain huge washes of reverb and delay, just creating this sense of vastness of space. The song also kind of plays with the theme of time because the main riff is played in triplets, while behind it the rhythm is often in just straight 16th or 8th notes even, creating kind of a polymeter feel. By crafting the music in this way, it really goes hand in hand with the idea of a spaceship that can manipulate both space and time. But for me, one of the coolest things about this song is the way it can maintain tonal ambiguity almost throughout the entire song. From the very beginning, we know that this song is in some kind of C minor mode because we have the notes C, E flat, and G creating a C minor triad. Throughout the majority of the song, C is definitely the tonal center, so we know it's something with a C minor triad. It's not until the bridge that we actually find out it's in C Dorian. When I first started analyzing the song, I just naturally assumed that it was C Aeolian or C minor, just because it was a tonal center of C and we're playing with a lot of C minor and G minor triads, lots of E flats and lots of B flats. As I continued looking through the song, I found it interesting that we still hadn't had an A flat, which would really confirm that the song's in C minor. The problem is, without either an A flat or an A natural, we can't really tell what mode we're in. Basically, up to the bridge, the notes we've encountered are C, D, E flat, F, G, and B flat. Based on these notes, we could either be playing in C minor, or C Aeolian, or C Dorian. So let's take a closer look at both of these scales. When we look at scale formulas like these on the screen, everything is relative to the major scale. For example, the formula for the major scale is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As we're looking towards other scales, we would either add sharps or flats to these degrees, basically to indicate if the pitches have been raised by a half step or lowered by a half step. So when we compare the minor mode with the Dorian mode, the only difference we see is in the 6th scale degree. The Aeolian mode, or the minor scale, has a flat 6th scale degree, while the Dorian mode has a major 6th. The cool thing here is that Gojira managed to avoid playing this note all the way up until the bridge section when we finally hear an A natural in just a wash of reverb. It's at this point that we can finally confirm that the song is based around the C Dorian scale. And it's at this point that we finally know where we are, what the home key is. I don't know whether or not this was an intentional feature, or if it has anything to do with the lyrical content of the song. I just found it to be particularly noteworthy. In Jake's analysis of his new song, Get Off My Bus, he talks about a similar technique that he uses in the solo section of that song. Another World is a fun song that has some groove-driven riffs, tells an interesting story, and pairs the lyrical theme with relevant musical ideas. It's a great example of how a song with only a few different guitar riffs can have a lot going on beneath the surface. For me, the main takeaways from this song are, firstly, more is not always more. Don't be afraid to put a song together with just a couple guitar riffs. Not everything needs to be Composure by August Burns Red. Second, if you do have a small handful of riffs, it definitely helps to have some kind of uniting musical idea or motif to help keep your continuity throughout the song. Third, don't be afraid to get creative with the tonality. You don't necessarily have to give your listeners all the notes at once. You can kind of keep them guessing which mode they're in. Don't be afraid to leave some tonal ambiguity, especially if it helps out your story. Lastly, make sure that there's some musical feature tying the accompaniment directly to the lyrical content. For Gojira in the song Another World, those themes are space and time, which they incorporate into the music through the use of massive reverb and some interesting polymetric ideas. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next Friday.